We're responding to the need for information.
This is just an outreach of civil society.
You want more guidance on implementation.
It's useful for you.
APRM can learn from the OGP. It's an eye-opener for the nation.
So participation, collaboration, and transformation.
It's a partnership when you come to this.
It's not a challenge, it's just a process that needs to be implemented.
Kick back.
The OGP is very young. We're coming up to our 5th anniversary, but it started in 2011 with 8 government heads of state and 9 civil society leaders who really thought that there was something broken in the kind of multilateral system. So we had, really breakdowns at the UN, in the World Trade Organization. The climate talks at the time were going nowhere, and so they tried to come up with a model where countries could come together voluntarily to push each other to go further, but in a way that really involves civil society at the heart of the organization.
The intention was to have African civil society organizations converging in Cape Town to discuss about the partnership in itself, how it is helpful to their countries, how it is helpful in their relationships with the governments of their countries, but also just to create a bit of excitement in the continent to ensure that other African countries subscribe to the ethos and the value of what the partnership seeks to bring in terms of governance, accountability, transparency.
Well, the event happens every 2 years. It's a regional event, which means we have visitors from the rest of the continent, and it's really about knowledge exchange amongst government, experts and civil society on open government practices.
We've been working with South African civil society and the Department of Public Service Administration to put on this event. So one of the things we were hoping to do was bring reformers from governments across the continent and civil society leaders really to share the lessons from their countries and encourage each other to have a kind of a race to the top in how ambitious they're being on open government and really involving citizens in decision making.
It's a wide range of people that we've had here. We have ministers from countries that are both in the OGP and aspiring countries who want to know more. We've had a number of high-level visitors as well.
Because OGP is really about giving people the space to take risks and innovate and sometimes fail, and then to share those lessons with each other so that we can all improve the standards of governance in our countries.
The most powerful tool of OGP is to learn from each other, because people in a number of countries are struggling with how to fight corruption, how to make the government better, and some countries already have good tools that are tested and that are ready to be used. And I think that the power of this relationship is to bring people together who are real reformers and who can bring up the change and share practical tools and experiences.
It is about sharing ideas around progress towards making governments in general and the world a lot more transparent place. So idea sharing, mapping out programs and coordinating ways of implementing things.
We need to talk about open governments. We need to changed the idea that government is a paternalistic entity, and really it's one of collaboration, one where it's collaboration between government and citizens, civil society and the media, to really provide better services, to hold government to account. And that's not a negative thing. I think that's the sort of thing that we need. And this is an opportunity for us to make a really strong statement that we are already doing that.
It is a belief that we have as a sector that the solutions of South Africans will come from collective action, and that the state and civil society should work together using different approaches and sharing complex platforms to advance access to justice.
So it's important for us as Africans to meet around and think through the direction that this initiative is to take in the next 5 years, and that direction to be put into the global consideration around how OGP is supposed to work. So this event creates that opportunity for people to influence what is actually happening at a global scale.
What is, I think, really inspiring about OGP is that it brings to the global attention the notion that governments shouldn't operate in secrecy, but they should develop concrete actions with citizens and with NGOs, how to make governments less corrupt, how to spend public money more efficiently, and how to run governments better for people.
I've been to a few OGP summits in the past, and I'm really excited about this one, especially since South Africa is the chair. And there's been amazing progress in the last 12 months. The National Open Data Portal has been launched. Treasury is now launching an open data portal around releasing budget information. There's a lot of excitement, and I think that we really are finally accelerating towards a more open government.
Imagine, for example, if you're a citizen there, you interact with government on so many interfaces. In fact, you interact with government from the day you were born, as you grow up, every time you go to through your, in terms of your primary healthcare services, in your education services, as you go into the labor force. But many of us don't really have a single view of our life through the eyes of our interaction with government. Perhaps our lives will be so much richer in terms of our ability to make decisions about ourselves if such information was readily available.
It's all about the connections we make to start new projects, build new solutions for communities we work with.
In South Africa, we can enhance the already existing relationship between government and civil society, and most importantly, the citizens, by making sure that we remain an accountable and open government.
On the issue of climate change, the traditional approach to solving this issue would be we have people in government that know about climate, we'll ask them. The new way to address this issue in the way that this conference promotes is to say, well, we have people in government that know a little bit about it. We also have researchers in public universities that know about it, but we also have citizens that happen to know a lot about climate. We also have companies that might be able to bring some useful insight on the issue. We also have students that might have interesting perspectives on the issue. We also have civil society organizations that might promote a specific point of view on the issue and lead a campaign, for instance. So it's all these parts that make a whole that is more comprehensive and a better response to a challenge than just the government's perspective.
The involvement of more civil society organizations that have not had an opportunity to be part of this family of CSOs and nations of the Open Government Partnership, but also coming out of this with more ambitious commitments that are not that difficult to implement.
This conference today talks about open governance. Give the voice to the civil societies. Give the voice to the young people. Give the voice to the young people that can be groomed to take the leadership of tomorrow, to be part of decision making.
I think it's important to come together as a group and review, because when countries join OGP, they join subscribing to a certain number of principles, and they then use action plans every 2 years to recommit to that. So I think it's good to come back, because if we started in 2011 and we said we are committing to certain principles, we must be able to look back 5 years later and say, this is where we've made progress.
It's been great to see a real diversity of government ministries and officials represented. So not only DPSA, but also ministries that are working on sectors like environment and water and education. And also to see a cross-section of civil society, so ranging from groups who are working on very specific issues to the community development workers and the faith sectors, so really seeing a much broader cross-section. And I think that brings us lots of new energy and ideas. So that's been one of the highlights so far.
My expectations from this conference, I think, is to bring civil society and government together. So there's a meeting of minds, so people can understand on both sides of the fence what the challenges are, what work is currently being done. We're not working in isolation, we're all working on the same team. And also to compare notes across countries and what's happening across the fence.
My experience with the conference has been great. As usual, OGP conferences have a lot of energy. A lot of it's about getting motivated to do more work. There's some interesting activities happening in other countries, interesting models that we can learn from. The Chief Technology Officer from the US is here. They've got an interesting approach to how they work with technology and how they bring developers into government to work on projects within government and to make real change in government.
I'll be speaking on education, open education, and I'll be really glad being a panelist of the Education Commission, the International Education Commission. I'll be really glad to speak on education, open education, education for all, education which does not become a business in Africa, but education which is made available, especially for the young people of the continent.
After working as a child mother for almost 13 years for 3 different families, I just tell myself that why can't I come and implement what I've been doing for these people in Sea Point, Camps Bay, in my community. That is how I started it.
The conversations I've had so far from people across the continent have been energizing, just to hear what people are doing in other countries.
We believe that participating to such a conference, it gives us an opportunity to exchange with those great partners who are attending, and of course to seek support as we mobilize African youth funds to support young entrepreneurs on the continent.
It's interesting that the weight that this OGP conference now has, and I think that the people it's attracting from within the South African government, but then also internationally. So it's a great signal of the importance of open government and open data to governments and societies going forward.
OGP is big on transparency and on disclosure, having to get people to have more access, increasing access to information, making it accessible, making it comprehensible, making sure that people actually understand the information that gets distributed or that gets taken out.
It's a very new model of conference, and I think given the issues that the world today faces, there are a lot of issues that just even elected officials cannot face by themselves, and they have to be in partnership with the civil society of their own countries, also with civil societies of different countries, of other countries, and we have to work together to face and solve these problems that we have, whether it be climate change, whether it be the fight against corruption, or a lot of these issues. So I think this partnership being at the heart of the conference is what makes it special and hopefully what makes it useful.
So the South Africans just released their action plan for the next 2 years, which is the main tool of OGP. And what I am really interested in seeing is that South Africa is trying to commit to ending the secrecy behind companies.
Pockets of excellence also exist in the area of open tender processes. The Gauteng Provincial Treasury has recently introduced the concept of open tender processes, seeking to keep citizens informed on the developments in awarding of government contracts to business.
the dialogues over the past 2 days has been around how do we enhance this participation and talking about budgeting processes, that how do we promote participation in budgeting processes, in contracting processes. So I think, and also how do we enhance our partnership with civil society organizations.
Today, the continent is facing so many problems with the unemployment rate, which is highly on the continent for the youth. And we see these young people going in armed groups. We see these young people going into terrorism. We see these young people going into so many things that are not conducive for the future of the continent. So if Africa has to consider the implementation of Agenda 2063 and the SDGs, I think we need to really find solutions to certain issues affecting the young people, especially to reduce the unemployment rate, and of course support young people in entrepreneurship. Because if you support young people in entrepreneurship is key to job creation and unemployment rate reduction.
From our side, as a technology kind of entity, the technology foundations and technology rules are quite fast and quite advanced. And this kind of things work better through collaboration.
This partnership between civil society and governments, between these collaborations, very concrete collaborations between governments that used to not talk to each other, this is not a solution yet, but it is a path to a solution. So that's why people are excited about it, and we are very proud and happy to be working with the South African governments and other governments and be involved in this to try and make a solution happen.
At an OGP level, at the steering committee level, we've signed a declaration, which in September there will be a symbolic handover of that declaration to the SG of the Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, where 50 countries of the OGP have signed the declaration to say we are fully on board in support of the SDGs.
This conference gives a voice to the voiceless. This conference gives a platform to those who especially do not have the opportunity to speak. It gives a platform to civil societies. It gives a platform to government. So it puts the government and civil society together. So this is now civil society saying, this is what we believe, and the government also saying, this is what we think it should be. Like today morning, it was very interesting. The minister from the government of South Africa saying that this is what we believe in, South Africa has to serve its interest. There comes a civil society person saying, no, it should be like this.
Mugelani, thank you. But I do believe that governments are true representatives of the people because they are elected. Governments are elected by the people.
So each and everyone is trying to defend this side, but what is more important is to meet common interests, to meet a common target for the good of our people.
I'm really excited by, in general, the work that Kenya does. They're a real inspiration. I got involved in open data mostly because I saw the Kenyan government releasing data, and I was wondering, where's South Africa's open data? And that's the real driver. So I always look to see, South Africa is usually considered to be one of the powerhouses, and I look towards Kenya to see the sorts of innovations that are coming out of there.
Get involved. You know, even if you do not belong to community, your civil society organizations, as a citizen, please do get involved, because determining your future is also your responsibility.
I just want this to be continuously happening, and I wish our community can see that we are going somewhere. We are not stuck. Somebody out there is watching and is looking for us.
I think it's a very exciting project, a global project. It's very exciting that we have endorsed it as a country, operating at a very high level within the global partnership movement. And we're quite excited that we are working directly with the National Executive Authority in the implementation of this program.
All of us, we've got one goal, to make sure that things are done openly, accountable and transparency, and also to make sure that things are executed.
My overall impressions of this conference is that it's been a very good opportunity to connect with international delegates that are dealing with or that are doing the similar types of projects like open data or projects in the open government.
It has been very, very interesting in terms of interacting with the government officials, the very ones who make the decisions out in the various countries, for them to understand what we think as citizens to make open governance work.
We have seen great speakers who are there in front, including Mo Ibrahim, who has been holding accountable governments in so many things. And we appreciate the job that he's doing.
Today's been fantastic, as is yesterday. It's amazing meeting people from around the world and around the rest of the continent, learning what they've been doing, sharing ideas, sharing experience, and really sharing business cards, which I think is incredibly important to follow up and find out what people are doing and seeing whether we can work together in the future.
I think the best highlight for me was the focus now, increased effort towards citizen engagement. And what do we really mean when we say citizens participate, not just giving out information, but actually creating an enabling environment for people to use this information to their benefit.
The best thing that happened today was when our Chief Procurement Officer, Kenneth Brown, explained how we should take away corruption in government and making sure that our government is open to everyone.
The conference has been a very interesting conference. It's been very helpful and useful in terms of building new networks and connections around openness and open data and open government.
Well, the conference has been very interactive, very informative, and of course it has been an opportunity for us to take stock of how our implementation has been going on and how far we've gone with the implementation of certain commitments.
The big takeaway for me would be understanding those spheres of value, I guess you might say. Number one, the socioeconomic value that gets created. Number two, the business value that gets created for the business community that participates in this thing. And then the personal value, for each citizen that gets touched. If we don't cultivate all of those value measures and make them real, then I think that no matter what we do from an open data and an open government perspective, we kind of miss the point. We can have a great idea of data to expose and how to expose it and the services that we want to provide, but if it doesn't meet all three of those, then I think we've missed the boat. So that's my big takeaway from the conference.
Once information is available, then people can know what is going on. Then it would also enhance participation in public procurement. It will also enhance service delivery to the public. Government will be accountable, and the people conducting public procurement will ensure that the transparency, because they know that the public have the information on what they're doing.
But even civil society organizations themselves need to start leading by example, by they themselves being accountable, transparent, filing tax returns, so that from there they are walking the talk as they engage with government.
It would be useful to see more African countries coming to the platforms. With only 8 that are part of the OGP, we hope that we will get more African countries in the future to participate.
To describe this conference in one word, I'd say it's inspirational.
Groundbreaking.
Inspiring.
Exciting.
Interesting.
It's fantastic.
Mind-boggling.
Wonderful, wonderful conference.
Accountability. Benchmarking.
The conference is very much interactive.
Very interactive.
It was amazing.
We must focus on the implementation of these OGP commitments. That's been a theme throughout the meeting. We need to find more ways to support these action plans turning into reality.
And I would like to thank the government of South Africa, particularly Deputy Minister Ayanda Dlodlo, who have brought this platform here to this beautiful city, who have given us an opportunity to meet each other, to converse with each other, and find areas of commonalities.
The only thing that remains is to ensure that those bright ideas and solutions that came out of the deliberations of the past few days are put into action, Their impact is evaluated, and we improve every day as we implement whatever program or project that we have together. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and a safe trip back home to all of you. Thank you.
Kick back.